joining us. This is Brunch, and we have with us Dr. Joanne Tull, researcher lecturer at the University of the West Indies, and we are talking about the product that is Carnival, the money that can be derived from this, because divestment is what we are talking about, and there are so many things that are begging, if we put attention to, that can in fact help us with the revenue side of it. Carnival is no mean contributor, as the doctor articulated earlier. It is something that is part of the fabric of Trinidad and Tobago. It is one of those products that you don't design, you don't build a dam for that. The dam has been here for a long time. We are talking about we needing some things done, which is to shore up the banks, to continue the analogy, which is getting a CSO to give you some numbers. So let us assume we get the CSO, we get the numbers. What is the next step as far as marketing this cultural side of tourism, Doctor?
Yes. Well, I like to see marketing for the carnival and most cultural products that we have in your region as premised on something that our late Professor Rex Nettleford once said, which is inward stretch, outward reach. And I'll deal with the inward stretch first. The inward stretch for me, in terms of marketing carnival, has to do with the recognition of what is homegrown that relates to the carnival. It is about harnessing that and encouraging that development. The artistry, the creativity, the ingenuity that is of Trinidad and Tobago. Why is that important? One, it will continue to build the cultural confidence of the people. If they are culturally confident and they are allowed to express what is their artistry and it is showcased fairly, they will be their own branders and own marketers. That's one.
There's one deficiency in that that I'll come back to a little later on, but I just want to put it in our discussion here. When you speak of encouraging the homegrown aspect of it, you must protect the homegrown aspect of it. And this whole thing of intellectual property is a real problem. But we'll get back to that. Please continue.
I hope Gregory is here by then. So that is important, that inward stretch in terms of encouraging what is local. How do we do that? There is need for the training initiatives that we have to be further developed, have more if necessary. We need to market that as well. Let the population be aware that these things exist. Still to this date, people are often surprised when they hear there's a carnival studies unit at the university. They say, and this program is almost 20 years old. And we have many outstanding graduates across Trinidad and Tobago. So there's that. There's a need for marketing even of the platforms that are necessary to market the product and service itself. So there is that inward stretch. There is also tied with inward stretch the central, bringing what already exists. That is the artistry, the regional carnivals, the traditional masquerade, the pan, all of these various elements more to the fore, to the center. I remember once having this idea where I said to one of the Mass Bands Association years ago, this was the National Carnival Development Foundation at the time, the late David McKell, he was still around, God rest his soul. And I said to him, why is it that we can't have a day or half of a day where the contemporary meets the traditionals? A band could pin itself to Paramin, you go Paramin, or you go Carpet Chima and you play that, or you go down Caranage, or you go south and play Indian Mass. I said, and in that way, you certainly are creating an opportunity for the media exposure and the media value. Because at that time, touching on the intellectual property aspect, the way in which they got their royalties apparently had to do with the coverage. I don't know if that is still the case, but I know that was what it was those years ago. So that inward stretch is very important in terms of building up that marketing. The people will showcase and they will talk about what they are doing as long as there is an opportunity for that to be recognized. There's that. Outward reach. This is where we are most comfortable because having tourism in the region for so many years, we have built up the various avenues and the strategies for how we promote these products and services that fall under event tourism or cultural tourism. So that the outward stretch is not necessarily the problem, but I think one of the challenges we have is what happens, the internal dynamics. There is a Professor Michael Porter. He talks about competitive advantage of nations. And he always argued that for a nation to have a competitive advantage, its home demand is very critical. He said without a strong home demand, your export platform is not necessarily solid or guaranteed. So that if we work on the elements, the internalities that relate to building up the product and service that can also be branding opportunities locally, you are likely to see a stronger offering and even greater flows. And I suppose inside of there, one would say, well then, where we put in all these people? But there's opportunity there as well, because we have seen the bread and breakfast market open up here on account of not having a hotel plant like, say, Barbados or Jamaica, right? So that within all of these elements where one may see a challenge or consider there to be a challenge, there is the opportunity to do something different in a way that can propel the industry forward, excuse me, as a sustainable event industry.
Because you have seen this from your research in many parts of the world. There are those who argue, for instance, that if we're talking about marketing the product, those who argue that the tourist bodies in the region, except for the developed parts of the region, St. Lucia being such an example, and Jamaica, the tourism agencies are not equipped or aware sufficiently to advantage the opportunities that there are those who are saying that governments, by their bureaucratic process, are not always at the forefront of having the initiative to get this done. So many offer that a public-private cooperation is needed. One, have you seen that in your study? Good morning, doctor. Have you seen that in your study, one? And two, is it something that you would put as an area that should be considered?
Yes.
And justify why you think so too?
Yes, okay. In all, that sounds like a good exam question. In all fairness to those who are our public sector officials and technocrats, where these areas are concerned, they do try and they do make effort. I think it's important that we recognize that for them to do, it is mandated from somewhere. So our first port of call in terms of ensuring that we can get the most out of what they do is to examine our policy. Our policy infrastructure is one of the challenges. And I'll give a regional example that affects all of us. I recall once having at a workshop, and we were talking about why is it we are not measuring? Why is it that we can't get data from CARICOM? And you know what the CARICOM official said? She said, well, we can't give the data because we are not mandated by the ministries or the government. If the Minister of Culture of X country or Y country tells us to count festivals, then we will start to gather that data. So if you notice, the problem comes from what is the government agenda and how they locate the culture or the carnival within what they consider to be their things to do list for a year or 5 years. So that can be part of the issue. Now, some would argue, but the government have had that as an agenda. There's so much that happened on the carnival, and they gave $2 million to Soca Monarch and what and what and what. That is not a policy. That is not even a strategy. That is simply fostering or putting money into a particular activity that you believe is going to generate a certain amount of attention and buy-in in a way to keep the numbers coming.
Some of it is just expediency to avoid accounting for your inability to plan the darn thing.
Well, exactly, because it's like what they call in marketing. If you have a as what they call that, the cash cow or a star on your range of products and services, and you throw all behind that and everything else is in vain.
Yes.
But as we know, these things are often short-lived. This is why in the music business, you have what you call the one-hit wonders. Now, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that the soca monarch is a one-hit wonder. Let me make that very clear. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you focus all of the attention on one particular aspect, you are in danger of having a very quick or steadily slow attrition of the other elements that really make up the product as a whole to those who may be consuming it. Third point, before I believe your next guest will jump in, is that it's also about perception. Marketing is about perception. I don't know the extent to which we have asked people how they see Carnival. We always, when I say we the planners always assume that the Carnival is about the fetes, and particular fetes too. And we assume it's about particular bands, and it's about Ash Wednesday cool down. And yes, it's those things. But do we know that there is revenue that is generated even from those who don't participate in the Carnival? This is what is so interesting about the Carnival product. So there are those who don't participate in the Carnival at all. And money is generated because they go off camping, they travel, they go to other parts of Trinidad and Tobago, and money is pumped into those communities because these people are not engaging in what is going on in Port of Spain and what have you. So I believe my whole point about the inward stretch, outward reach is that for marketing to be successful, we need to pay a lot of attention to what we're doing in the home context, the home space, inward, so that can give better support to the initiatives that are thought of yearly in terms of marketing the Carnival. And I dare say, when you compare Trinidad and Tobago to some of the other islands in the Caribbean, for marketing, Trinidad and Tobago does not really spend a lot of money in that regard.
People seem to think that they do.
Well, I could be corrected. I've yet to see a Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not saying that you have to do this, but I've yet to see an ad on, say, a CNN or a BBC. I've seen Jamaica, I've seen Barbados, I've seen St. Lucia. So the thing is, Trinidad and Tobago, in a sense, is blessed, and maybe it does not need to spend money, particularly on those kinds of marketing